Welcome to the Right Away Writing Workshops with me, Lisa Allen Agustin. Character is the engine of fiction. Characters pull your readers in and keep them interested. What would Percy Jackson be without Percy Jackson? Black Panther without T'Challa? Twilight without Bella Swan? When we sit down to write a new story, a character is often the first thing that comes, bringing the plot and setting with her. Everyone has a favorite character from a book, a story, a movie, or a play. But how do you build a great character from the ground up? The answer is ask lots of questions. What does the character want and why? What the character wants is her goal. Why she wants it is her motivation. You need to know these things from the start. How can she get what she wants? What obstacles stand between her and the goal? How does the character face and overcome these obstacles? What does she stand to lose if she can't overcome them? In other words, what are the stakes? How the character deals with obstacles creates conflict. Without conflict, the plot would be boring and pointless. Conflict can be internal, the character struggling with something about herself. How those conflicts are resolved drives the plot. Conflict can be external, the character struggling to overcome the natural environment, society, technology, or another character, for example. In my novel, Home Home, the heroine's struggle is both internal and external. Her strengths are what carry her and the story through the conflicts she faces. Ask yourself, is this character one-dimensional? No character should be all good or all bad. Just as our flaws make us human, flaws in the character make her more realistic. In a tragedy, the main character's flaws lead to her downfall, but her strengths are what makes the readers care about her fall. Give your villains strong motivation and some redeeming traits so they seem more human. Think about Voldemort, the main villain of the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. Sure, he's a cruel mega wizard who wants to take over the world, but Voldemort was once a half-muggle boy struggling to fit in, just like Harry. And even Voldemort loves his pet. More questions you should ask yourself when you're writing a character include, who is this character? How does she look, walk, talk, live? One of the rules of modern fiction is show, don't tell. Use scenes and dialogue to show things rather than telling the reader about them through the narration. Write descriptively about your character's appearance, manner, and interactions with other characters. Show the reader what you want them to know. In the very first scene of the book My Fishy Stepmom by Shakira Bourne, the protagonist Josephine and her best friend, Akai, set up a mean practical joke to tip a bucket of fish guts on the head of her father's newest girlfriend.
I raced to my bedroom. Daddy's long legs stride up the stairs behind me, 3 or 4 at a time. I got my height from Daddy. I'm already taller than all the boys in my class and really skinny, like a string bean. Daddy must be hopping mad because he's forgotten about his bad knee. At least twice a week I have to rub it with Benji's Balm, a strong vapor rub that helps with the pain. I burst into my room and try to shut the door, but Daddy's already pushing against it, trying to force his way inside. It's a losing battle, 80 pounds versus 210. It's not my fault. It was an accident. You was the one who knocked down the bucket, I yell, trying to muster superhuman strength from my fear. But I know my excuses are as pointless as my attempt to block the door. I move my body away and Daddy stumbles inside. I take advantage of the moment and dive between his legs. I remember to keep my elbows in the air and roll to cushion the impact, just like how Coach Brooms instructed Jared during a diving practice session. Josephine, I'm going to count to 3. Daddy yells behind me. 1. I race down the stairs and dash into the living room. Mr. Pimples, my blue and yellow angelfish, seems to gasp at my intrusion. He hides in the shipwreck in his tank. 2. I can almost feel Daddy's hot breath on my neck. I dive and roll behind the couch, missing his grasp by an inch. 3. As dire as the situation is, I can't help but think this is like a dodgeball game. I imagine the commentators cheering for me. That was close. He nearly caught her there. Josephine Cadogan, what a player. Daddy throws a cushion at me, and I fling my hands in the air in dramatic style, curving my back so that it flies past me, but then it hits into the TV stand. The framed picture of Mom flies high in the air. It's one of our favorites because the photographer has captured her with her head thrown back in mid-laugh, her curly hair with blonde highlights catching the sun. The picture heads towards the floor, and both Daddy and I jump to catch it. I get a sharp flashback of the incident and automatically pull back, leaving Daddy with the responsibility of catching Mom. His fingertips reach the frame, but it slides out his grip. Thankfully, I am right there to catch her in my cupped hands. I bring Mom towards my chest and hold her there with safe hands, just like I do with the cricket ball. Exhausted and panting, Daddy and I collapse onto the couch at the same time.
When her father catches them at it, he chases Josephine around the house and they almost break a framed photo of her late mother. But they end up having a tickle session on the couch, not a violent confrontation. Instead of telling the reader Josephine and her dad are close, it shows Josephine's loving relationship with her dad and how much they both miss her mother. The scene sets up the main conflict of the plot. When Josephine's dad gets a serious girlfriend, the little girl will do everything she can to destroy the relationship and get rid of the woman. It also sets up Josephine's goal of being named to her school's cricket team. In dialogue, give your characters unique voices. Characters should be believable in how they act and react, and they should have some depth. You may need to do research to add detail to your character. That might mean hitting Wikipedia, reading articles, or interviewing real people about their lives. Who's telling the story? It's important to know which is your main character because this affects the choice of narrative point of view. More about that in a while. Ask yourself, which is the main character about whom this story is being told? If you have multiple characters that seem equally important, ask, would this plot exist without this particular character? The last character standing is your main protagonist. The narrative voice tells the story. It's through the narrator that the reader sees the world of the story. The 3 most popular narrative points of view are first person, third person limited, and third person omniscient. If the narrative voice is in the first person, the story is told by a character in the story, and that character is the I, like Mas Conrad in Gone to Drift or Josephine in My Fishy Stepmom. The first-person narrator's point of view is limited to only what that character knows, sees, and does. If the narrative voice is in the third-person limited, the narrator can only tell or show what is known by the main character, including that character's thoughts and feelings and other characters' words and actions. Usually the narrator is either the protagonist or another character in the story. This narration uses he or she instead of I. In third-person omniscient narration, the narrator knows everything about everyone. Omniscient literally means all-knowing. The third-person omniscient narrator uses he or she and can show or tell all the character's actions thoughts, feelings, and histories. Of all the narrative points of view, this is the most expansive one. You'll see it in classic novels like Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, The Lord of the Flies by William Golding, and The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, although it's not used in novels very much anymore. Whatever narrative point of view you choose, you should use it consistently throughout the story. Sometimes in a story, you want to give information about a character's past, her backstory. You could have the narrator tell that information. Or, instead of just telling the reader the backstory, you could show it. That's called a flashback. It's a scene that's set in a time before the present. Two things to remember about writing flashbacks are triggers and scenes. Flashbacks are characters' memories triggered by thoughts or actions in the present timeline. Flash forwards are similar episodes set in the future. Flashbacks are not random. They're connected to the plot by the trigger, and they have to have a purpose, whether it's advancing the plot, building a character, or developing the setting. Take this character writing workout challenge if you're ready to write a good character. I sometimes write noir fiction. That's a kind of crime story where nobody's really a good guy. So here's your challenge. Write a story about two characters who are on opposing sides of a conflict, each a villain in the other's eyes, each a hero in the eyes of his or her people. You can set the story in any time or place, and you can use any narrative point of view you like, but only one. Ask the questions. Who is this character? How does she look, walk, talk, live? What does the character want and why? How can she get what she wants? What obstacles stand between her and the goal? How does she face and overcome these obstacles? What are the stakes? Is this character balanced? Happy writing!